Welcome home, all of my love you, divine loves and divine lovettes. I love you guys. Whew, over 1,000, you guys. Listen up. What I'm doing right now is really trying to locate a woman's body that hasn't been found since 1988. So I did a real quick read. It just came out really quickly, the card, and I just wanted to, because they said the body has never been found. Now, I want you guys to hear this because I'm going to play this so you guys can hear what's going on exactly, and why I started this, okay? So let us listen up, you guys.
On April
here it goes.
28,
April
1988, Aloha Airlines Flight 243 took off from Hawaii's Hilo International Airport. The flight was traveling to Honolulu, less than an hour away. The weather was glorious, conditions were optimal, but just a few minutes after takeoff, a massive boom suddenly jolted the entire plane. Without any warning, the roof covering the first-class cabin was explosively ripped away. Aboard Flight 243 on that fateful day were 89 passengers and 6 crew members, including Captain Robert Schornsteimer and First Officer Madeline Tompkins. Together, they had more than 10,000 hours of flight experience with this model of aircraft, the Boeing 737. The plane was 19 years old, about 10 years from the end of its expected lifespan, and earlier that day, it had made 3 round-trip flights from Honolulu to Hilo, Maui, and Kauai. Nothing unusual was noted in the pre-departure inspection, and the plane had recently passed a Boeing service bulletin and an airworthiness directive by 2 separate inspectors. On paper, the aircraft was in top condition and ready to go. However, as one passenger was getting on, she looked out over the boarding bridge and noticed a crack in the aircraft's fuselage, about halfway between the aircraft door and the bridge hood. She assumed the staff must have known about it, and so said nothing to any ground crew or personnel. After all pre-flight checks were cleared, the plane took off without incident. The aircraft began its ascent, climbing up further and further with passengers still being shown the seatbelt on signs. As the pilots started leveling off the plane at around 24,000 feet, that's when they heard it. A boom, a huge cacophonous eruption followed by the rushing sound of wind. First Officer Tompkins' head was flung back and she saw pieces of debris like insulation foam floating around in the cockpit. It was then that the pilots looked back and noticed the entry door to the cockpit was missing. An 18-foot section of the roof and sides of the plane had been torn off above the passenger's head, along with their oxygen masks. They were, thankfully, still strapped into their seats, but the cabin crew that had been standing there had to cling on to anything they could to prevent being swept off their feet. But tragically, one didn't make it in time. Number 1 attendant, Clarabelle Lansing, was immediately swept out of the hole that appeared in the left side of the aircraft.
It's interesting because what I'm getting from this is that her body, now if she did live, which I really feel like she's living. I don't know why. Like, you guys, I feel like she's still living. I believe she got like the emergency care, but because she didn't have anything on her or something like that, I don't know. You guys, I'm just, it's something that's coming to me like she's living. So like I said, I didn't do an in-depth read, but I'm going by what divine, spirit is giving me. But it feels like she's living. And that because of the impact, she doesn't have memory. You know what I'm saying? Like, she doesn't have any memory at all of what took place. And every time that it comes, she tries to forget because it's such a real, flying from the sky, getting thrown from a plane. So what's happening is her memory, she's trying to also, combat that painful, feeling. So I'm sensing that wherever she is, she has a real, the health is, things happen with the body. We know that for sure. But for some reason, it's like, it's showing me like something with her head. Mainly, it's a lot of, trauma to the head. where trying to remember really hurts, you know what I mean? So I don't know, you guys. I got her really still, living.
Since the 1940s, there have been almost 50 cases of people surviving falls from airplanes. In all of those cases, the survivors were lucky enough to have something to cushion their fall. Vesna Vulovic, for example, was in the back of the plane when the explosion happened. When the plane broke apart, the tail section remained intact, and pinned by a food cart, Vulovic was prevented from being sucked out into the open air. The detached tail of the airplane landed in deep snow in the mountains of Czechoslovakia. Vulovic suffered several broken bones, but the airplane wreckage and layers of deep, soft snow ultimately saved her life. The second highest fall without a parachute that someone survived happened in 1943. Air Force gunner Alan McGee's bomber was hit by enemy fire over France. His plane burst into flames and propelled McGee out of the plane before he could grab a parachute. McGee fell about 6,700 meters. Apparently, he smashed through the glass roof of a train station and was found hanging from the steel girders that held up the roof. You wouldn't think that a glass roof would cushion any kind of fall, but if it hadn't have been there, McGee might not have survived. So, if you ever find yourself falling from an airplane without a parachute, grab onto something, anything, and use it to break your fall.